Let me ask you something. Have you ever travelled out west on the Central Line and wondered, just what are those overgrown tracks running alongside all about? Why is there a ghost train that runs once a day up and down this line? What's the deal with those old signals you can see very clearly from the platforms at Greenford Tube Station? Well, allow me to answer all those questions for you, and some more, by taking you for a trip up the new North Mainline.
Please stand behind the yellow line. Thank you.
Hello people of the internet, welcome back to another station and another mile. I'm a bit sweaty because it's one of those weird British summertime days where it's really cloudy and grey and miserable outside, but it's still in the middle of summer, so it's still really muggy. Plus, I only remembered about 3 minutes before this train departed that I hadn't actually got my ticket for it. Pro tip, if you're getting a train that only runs once a day, don't do that. Ooh, nice. Now this video is going to be a bit of a funny one because I've kind of got a co-host for this one. And I've kind of already filmed this video before. Back before I even filmed the Northern City Line footage, which was back in October 2018, I filmed the Paddington Parliamentary Train, which runs the entire length of the new North Main Line. 3 weeks after I filmed that, they cut off the end at Old Oak Common because they're using that land for HS2 stuff. So the Parliamentary Train ended up being rerouted, so it now starts at West Ealing, where we've just come from. So even though it looks like I'm hosting this one solo, I do technically have a co-host for this one in the form of past me, and I'm going to hand you over to him right now. This time travel thing's a bit difficult. Hang on a minute.
Hello people of the internet. It's a nice sunny Friday morning in October of all places, and I'm at London Paddington. I'm actually here for a train that departs today only. Once it goes to a station that is actually faster to go to if you get onto one of the other trains at the station and change. And even if you come through here every day, you may never have even heard of this train. Come over here, I'll show you what I mean.
Now, this is what's known as a parliamentary train. These exist to run a very sparse service over sections of track that would otherwise need an Act of Parliament in order to remove altogether, hence the name, you see. And while they aren't technically ghost trains in the purest sense of the word, you can see why they got the name, because they aren't exactly the most crowded of trains.
Okay, so we're on the train now, and by my count, there's 2 other people on the train at the moment, and there's another guy who, given by the fact that when I walked past the window and he saw I had a camera, he smiled, he gave me a thumbs up. I have a feeling he might be on this train for the same reason we are. Let's do this, shall we?
So all of this begs the question, if I'm on a parliamentary train, what's the section of railway line scarcely used anymore that necessitates this train to run on it once a day?
At the moment, we're on the Great Western Main Line like anything else coming out of Paddington, but in a moment, we're going to end up on a stretch of line that runs parallel to the Central Line that existed before the Central Line existed, that they want to kind of keep open because it'd be a bit too much of a faff to keep closed. Meow. So basically, instead of going through all the faff of ripping up the track and dismantling the whole thing, they can keep it open by running just one train, and that's exactly what we're on right now. The one train that they run along this bit of line so they don't have to close it. And what is this stretch of line, you may ask? It's a funny little thing called the Acton to Northolt line.
Originally built way back in the early 1900s, the new North Main Line, or Acton to Northolt line as it's more commonly known now, was part of a joint project between the Great Western and Great Central Railways, which enabled trains running out of London Paddington, the Great Western terminus, to link up with the lines running out of London Marylebone, the Great Central terminus, and run faster, more convenient services from London to Birmingham and beyond, in an attempt to compete and offer an alternative to the London North Western Railway lines out of London Euston. It leaves the Great Western Main Line just after Old Oak Common and joins up with what we now know as the Chiltern Main Line at Northolt Junction near South Ruislip Station. And for almost its entire length, it runs side by side with the Central Line, making for a unique view out of the window.
So we've just taken the split off the Great Western Main Line, which is just after Old Oak Common, took a little point through some trees, and now look, I'm running alongside the Central Line. Hi.
If you've ever been to Greenford Tube Station before, you've probably stood on the platform and wondered, what are those old-fashioned signals over there all about? Good question. Glad you asked.
So here's one really nice little detail about this route. It's one of the last in London to have an old-style semaphore signals on it. Semaphores are basically replaced almost everywhere else in the country now, except here. Have a look at that. That is one of the last semaphore signals in London.
Dating back decades, these old semaphore signals survived due to the line being so little used these days. Like the rest of the line, there's no point spending so much time and money on a line that's basically now mothballed. For nerds like us, it's great, especially when you get to see them in operation. Anyway, present day AJ, it's back to you.
There we go, back in the present. Thank you, past me, for that. Nice cat, by the way, prove of that. So now we're just coming up on the junction at Greenford, which gives me a chance to show you a couple of very neat little things here, including one of my favourite features, this gorgeous old Great Western Railway signal box. Look at that! How cool is that? And now we are on the new North Main Line again.
The triangular junction at Greenford not only links the Greenford branch to the Greenford Central Line station, but it also links it to the new North Main Line, providing to this day useful access for things like freight trains. Side note, I once saw an LNER A4 steam locomotive using the junction to reverse and turn around after holding a steam special charter train, and that was a pleasant surprise.
So I'll switch sides for this bit, just to give you a bit more, to make sure we're not attacked by trees. As I think you can tell by the fact that our train is literally being battered by overgrown trees and shrubbery, the line's never really been closed, it's just sort of been run down the years. You can still see parts of the line where it was double track, where it was a proper main line. Still see bits of the track sort of overgrown now, where they've singled most of it, including this section that we're on right now. And there's the Central Line right there. It's kind of weird to think about that was only came after this that we're on now. And this stretch of line did all have stations pretty much at every point where there were stations on the Central Line now, and including some extra ones. I think there was one called like Twyford Abbey, Park Royal, which is now a stop on the Piccadilly line. And it's just kind of weird that this just looks so overgrown and forgotten about, and yet this was here first, and at one time this was seen as a really important way to get from London to the Midlands, on the same par as the lines out of Euston up to Birmingham and places like that. This was the GWR's way of getting to Birmingham quickly.
This is what I find the most fascinating about the new North Main Line. It's hard to believe looking at it now, but for a long time the new North Main Line was a thriving main line with express passenger services and a myriad of freight sidings serving all sorts of industries, including stoneworks, mail, a wallpaper company, and even a Guinness brewery. The Central Line's West Ruislip branch that runs alongside only opened in 1948, some 42 years after the new North Main Line opened. And even after the infamous Dr. Beeching cuts of the 1960s stripped away a lot of the express services, the line still saw continuous use, only really falling into obscurity in the last few decades as the various freight sidings have slowly become mothballed or lifted. It still remains useful to this day for occasional freight services, as well as a diversionary line during engineering works and for special charter trains. But riding the new North Main Line now, it's surreal to imagine the action this 11-mile stretch of line used to see.
So there we go, we're officially off the new North Main Line section, which is Acton to Northolt roughly, and we're on to the Chiltern Main Line, running out of Marylebone, and on our way up to High Wycombe on a train that did actually start at South Ruislip and came down and now is going back out again. The nature of Parliamentary Trains.
With our run on the new North Main Line itself complete, there's just time before we get to High Wycombe to give you a sneak peek into the sort of services the new North Main Line used to see.
A few months back, I actually found something particularly fascinating to me. This is a timetable that dates from May 1968 and details services between London Paddington and Birmingham New Street via High Wycombe, Prince's Risborough, Bicester North, Banbury, Leamington Spa, Stratford upon Avon, Nolan Dorridge, Solihull. In other words, these services must have used the new North Main Line.
So as you can see there on the front, cheap tickets to the Midlands, day and period returns from Paddington, High Wycombe, Prince's Risborough and Bicester. I picked this up for 20p. And inside, look at this. It's an entire timetable. Accurate until the 4th of May 1968. And as you can see, there used to be, how many? 13 services, London to Birmingham, and 4 on Sundays. And there's some notes and bits and bobs down there. And here's a little fare table. Look at this. If you want to complain about how expensive ticket prices are, there you go. This is what it costs to go from London to Birmingham in 1968. So there you have it. We're at High Wycombe. The Parliamentary train has headed back towards Marylebone to get into normal service again. And that's our rundown on the new North Main Line. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope next time you're out west on the Central Line, you do take a look at what those other tracks are over there. You'll be amazed at the hidden history they contain. I've been AJ. This has been Another Station, Another Mile. We'll see you next time.